I walked into my apartment after another exhausting 12-hour day at the design studio, expecting to collapse on my couch with a cold beer and some leftover pizza. Instead, I found my unemployed brother Tyler sprawled across my leather sectional, controller in hand, surrounded by empty takeout containers and his clothes scattered everywhere. When I demanded an explanation, he casually mentioned our parents told him he could move in permanently because I had extra space and he needed help getting back on his feet. My blood pressure spiked as I stared at Tyler, who continued playing his video game like nothing had happened. The living room looked like a tornado had hit it. His dirty laundry was piled on my dining table. His sneakers were kicked under my coffee table, and he was drinking straight from my carton of orange juice. "Tyler, what the hell is going on?" I asked, setting my laptop bag down harder than necessary. He paused his game and looked up with that same innocent expression he had used to get out of trouble since we were kids. "Oh hey, Jesse. Mom and Dad said I could crash here for a while. I lost my place a couple weeks ago." "Lost your place?" I walked around the couch to face him properly. "What do you mean you lost your place? And why didn't anyone ask me about this arrangement?" Tyler shrugged and reached for another slice of my leftover pizza. "Got evicted. Couldn't make rent after I lost my job at the warehouse 6 months ago. I've been sleeping in my car for 2 weeks, man. It's been rough." The casual way he said it made my stomach turn. 6 months unemployed and sleeping in his car for 2 weeks, and this was the first I was hearing about it. But what really bothered me was the assumption that my space was automatically available for him. "Where are you planning to sleep?" I asked, though I had a sinking feeling I already knew the answer. "Mom said I could use your office. You know, that extra bedroom where you keep your computer stuff. My home office. The space where I worked on freelance projects after my regular job, where I kept my expensive equipment, my drawing tablet, my reference books, the room that generated almost a third of my monthly income through side projects." I pulled out my phone and dialed my parents' number. My father Robert answered on the second ring. "Hey Jesse, I was wondering when you'd call about Tyler." "Dad, what's going on?" "I came home and he's moved into my apartment. Nobody asked me about this." "Well, son, we own the building, and Tyler needed help. We figured you wouldn't mind helping your brother out." "You figured?" My voice was getting louder. "You figured I wouldn't mind giving up my office and having my living space invaded without any discussion. Now, Jesse, don't be dramatic. Tyler's family. He's going through a hard time, and you have extra space. We thought this would teach you something about family responsibility." I could hear my mother Linda's voice in the background, telling my father to explain about the temporary arrangement. But when he came back to the phone, his tone had shifted. "Look, son, Tyler needs stability while he gets back on his feet. You're doing well for yourself with that design job, and this apartment has 2 bedrooms. We decided it would be good for both of you." "Good for both of us? How is this good for me?" "Tyler can help with household chores, maybe cook dinner sometimes, and you'll be helping family. That's what we do in this family, Jesse." I hung up the phone, frustrated and confused. When I turned back to Tyler, he was setting up what looked like a gaming station where my desk used to be. "Tyler, when exactly did you move my office furniture?" "This morning. Mom gave me the spare key. I put your stuff in the closet for now. Don't worry, I was careful with everything." I rushed to the spare bedroom and opened the closet door. My desk was crammed in at an angle. My monitors were stacked precariously on top, and my drawing tablet was shoved behind a pile of winter coats. $3,000 worth of equipment treated like storage junk. "Tyler, I work from this room. I have client projects due next week. Can't you work from the kitchen table or something? I really need a proper place to sleep, man. The car was killing my back." Before I could respond, I heard keys jingling at my front door. Sarah walked in carrying Thai food and wine, expecting our planned dinner date. She stopped dead in the doorway, taking in the chaos. "Oh," she said, looking from Tyler to me to the disaster that used to be my organized living space. "I didn't realize you had company." "Sarah, this is my brother Tyler." "Tyler, my girlfriend Sarah." "Tyler has apparently moved in." Sarah's expression shifted as she processed this information. She had heard plenty about Tyler over the 8 months we had been dating. The job he lost for showing up late too many times. The credit card debt my parents had helped him pay off twice. The pattern of irresponsibility that had been going on since high school. Moved in? Sarah asked carefully. Our parents decided Tyler should live here while he gets back on his feet, I explained. They made this decision without consulting me because they own the building. Tyler stood up and extended his hand to Sarah with a charming smile. Nice to finally meet you. Jesse's told me a lot about you. I promise I won't be in the way too much. Just until I find a new job and get my own place again. Sarah shook his hand politely, but I could see the concern in her eyes. She knew how hard I had worked to create a comfortable, organized living space. She also knew how important my freelance work was to my financial goals. How long do you think that might take? She asked Tyler. Oh, I'm actively looking, sending out applications every day. The job market is tough right now, but I'm optimistic. Maybe a month or two? I wanted to ask Tyler about the specifics of his job search, but Sarah caught my eye and shook her head slightly. She had learned to read family dynamics quickly, and she could see that pushing Tyler right now would only create more tension. That night, after Sarah left and Tyler had claimed the spare bedroom, I sat in my living room trying to process what had happened. In one day, my personal space had been invaded, my work area had been dismantled, and my family had made a major decision about my life, without including me in the discussion. The worst part was the assumption underlying it all, that I should be grateful for the opportunity to support Tyler, that my success meant I owed something to family members who made poor choices, that my feelings about my own living space were less important than Tyler's immediate needs. As I lay in bed that night, listening to Tyler playing video games in what used to be my office, I realized this arrangement was going to test every boundary I thought I had established as an adult. 2 weeks into Tyler's residency, my apartment felt like a completely different place. The coffee ran out twice as fast, the grocery bill had nearly doubled, and I kept finding dishes in the sink that I hadn't used. Tyler had made himself comfortable in every sense of the word. I was reviewing client invoices at the kitchen table on a Tuesday morning when my phone rang. My father's name appeared on the screen, and I had a feeling this conversation wasn't going to improve my day. Morning, Jesse. We need to talk about adjusting the rent arrangement. What kind of adjustment? Well, now that Tyler's living there, we need to update the monthly payment. Your rent will be $1,600 starting next month instead of $800. I nearly dropped my phone. You're doubling my rent? Someone has to pay for Tyler's portion, and you're the one with steady income. It only makes sense. Dad, Tyler isn't paying rent. He doesn't have a job. That's exactly why this arrangement works. You help cover his expenses until he gets established, then you'll work out something fair between the two of you. I walked into the living room where Tyler was eating cereal and watching morning television. He looked comfortable and relaxed, like someone without a care in the world. Tyler, Dad just told me the rent is going to $1,600 a month because you're living here. Tyler looked up from his cereal. Yeah, he mentioned something about that. I told him I'd pay you back once I find work. When exactly do you think that might happen? It's been 6 months since you lost your warehouse job. Actually, it's been closer to 8 months, Tyler said casually. But I'm being selective about opportunities now. I don't want to just take any job. I want something with growth potential. 8 months. He had been unemployed for 8 months, not 6 like he had told our parents. And instead of feeling urgent about finding income, he was talking about being selective. What have you applied for recently? I asked. I've got a few things in the pipeline. There's this gaming company that might need someone in their customer service department, and I heard Best Buy might be hiring for the holidays. Might need someone, might be hiring. Tyler, have you actually submitted applications? He waved his hand dismissively. The job market is all online now. You send your resume into a black hole and hope for the best. It's not like the old days where you could walk into a place and ask for work. That evening, Sarah came over with dinner and found me stress cleaning the kitchen. I had scrubbed the counters twice and reorganized the cabinets, trying to burn off the frustration of my conversation with Tyler and my father. $1,600? Sarah repeated when I told her about the rent increase. Jesse, that's more than most people pay for a 1-bedroom apartment in this city. Apparently, I'm now financially responsible for Tyler's lifestyle. My father made it sound like this was the natural order of things. The successful son supports the struggling son. Sarah sat at the kitchen table and pulled out her laptop. Let's look at this practically. What's Tyler actually costing you per month? We started adding up the numbers. The increased grocery bill, the higher utility costs from someone being home all day with the air conditioning and television running, the wear and tear on furniture, the loss of income from not having access to my home office setup. This isn't sustainable, Sarah said. Even if Tyler finds a job tomorrow, you're looking at significant monthly losses while he gets established, and that assumes he actually wants to find work. What do you mean? Sarah hesitated. Jesse, I've been watching Tyler for 2 weeks. What does his daily routine look like? I thought about it. Tyler woke up around 10. He ate breakfast while watching television. He played video games for several hours. He took breaks to eat my food and use my streaming accounts. In the evening, he watched more television or played more games. I haven't seen him working on a resume or making phone calls or doing anything that looks like job hunting, Sarah continued. Have you? I realized I hadn't. In 14 days of living together, I had never seen Tyler engaged in any activity that could be considered employment preparation. Maybe he does it when I'm at work, I suggested weakly. Maybe. Or maybe this arrangement is exactly what he wanted. Free housing, free food, free entertainment, and no pressure to change anything. The next morning, I decided to test Sarah's theory. I told Tyler I was leaving for work but doubled back after 20 minutes and quietly entered the apartment. Tyler was exactly where I had left him, playing video games in his pajamas. Tyler, I thought you might be working on job applications. He looked surprised to see me. Oh, I was going to do that this afternoon. I like to get my head right in the mornings, you know? Right. What companies are you planning to contact today? I've got a list somewhere, let me find it. He never found the list. Instead, he launched into a 20-minute explanation of why most jobs weren't worth applying for, because they didn't pay enough or required too many hours, or were too far away, or didn't offer the kind of advancement, opportunities he was looking for. That evening, I called Tyler's best friend Marcus to ask about the job situation. Marcus was honest in a way that Tyler hadn't been. Man, Tyler's been collecting unemployment this whole time, Marcus told me. He's got money coming in. Not a lot, but enough for basics. He just hasn't told your parents about it. He's been getting unemployment benefits for 8 months? Yeah, and he's been working some cash jobs here and there. Nothing official, but he's not broke like your family thinks. I hung up the phone feeling sick. Tyler had money. He was receiving unemployment benefits and working occasional jobs for cash. But he was letting me and our parents believe he was completely destitute and in desperate need of support. When I confronted Tyler about the unemployment benefits, he didn't deny it. Look, it's not that much money, he said defensively. And I don't know how long it's going to last. I need to save up for a security deposit and first month's rent when I move out. So while you're saving up, I'm supposed to pay double rent and cover all your living expenses? It's temporary, Jesse. I'm not trying to take advantage of anyone, but that's exactly what he was doing. He was taking advantage of our parents' concern, my success, and the family dynamics that made it difficult for anyone to say no to helping him. And he was doing it deliberately, with full knowledge of the financial impact on everyone else. I realized that Tyler wasn't the victim of circumstances that our parents believed him to be. He was an adult man who had figured out how to manipulate the system to avoid taking responsibility for himself. And I was enabling it by going along with the arrangement, instead of demanding transparency and accountability. The question was what I was going to do about it. I spent 3 days planning what I wanted to say to my parents. Sarah helped me organize my thoughts and evidence, and we decided that a clear, calm presentation would be more effective than an emotional confrontation. I scheduled a family meeting for Saturday afternoon at my parents' house. Tyler tried to skip it, claiming he had plans, but I insisted this concerned him directly. The 4 of us sat around my parents' kitchen table, where we had held family meetings throughout my childhood. But this time, I wasn't asking for permission or seeking approval. I was presenting information and establishing boundaries. I want to talk about the current living arrangement and the financial expectations that come with it, I began. My mother Linda immediately looked uncomfortable. Jesse, If this is about money, you know we're grateful for how you're helping Tyler. Mom, I found out Tyler has been receiving unemployment benefits for the past 8 months. He's also been working occasional cash jobs. He's not destitute like we've been led to believe. I pulled out printouts of unemployment benefit information and handed them to my father. Tyler is receiving $540 per week in unemployment insurance. That's over $2,000 per month. Tyler shifted uncomfortably but didn't deny the information. Tyler, my father said, you told us you weren't getting unemployment because you were fired. I appealed the decision, Tyler said quietly. It went through a few months ago, but I didn't want anyone to worry about the money running out. So you let us worry about you being homeless instead? I asked. My mother jumped to Tyler's defense. Tyler's going through a hard time. The unemployment won't last forever, and he needs stability while he looks for work. Mom, have you seen evidence that Tyler is actually looking for work? Have you seen him submit applications or go to interviews? Of course he's looking for work, she said, but her tone suggested she hadn't actually verified this. I turned to Tyler. Tell them about your job search activities this week. Tyler looked at our parents, then back at me. The job market is really tough right now. A lot of companies aren't hiring, and the ones that want experience I don't have. That's not what I asked. What specific actions did you take this week to find employment? The silence stretched uncomfortably. Tyler couldn't provide a single example of job search activity because there hadn't been any. Look, I continued, I'm not trying to attack Tyler, but I am trying to establish some fairness in this situation. I'm paying $1,600 in rent to subsidize Tyler's lifestyle while he collects unemployment and chooses not to work. That's not helping family. That's enabling irresponsibility. My father's face was getting red, which I recognized as a warning sign. Jesse, Tyler is your brother. We help family members when they're struggling. That's what we do. I'm not against helping Tyler. I'm against being financially manipulated without my consent. If Tyler needs help, let's create a realistic plan with timeline and expectations. But I won't continue paying double rent for someone who has income and chooses not to use it responsibly. So what are you saying? My mother asked. I'm saying either we return to the original rent arrangement, or I'll find my own place to live. The words hung in the air. I had never threatened to move out before, and I could see my parents processing the implications. My father was the first to respond, and his tone was cold. That's your choice, Jesse. But Tyler still needs a place to live, and we're not going to put him on the street. Maybe it's time you learned that family obligations come before personal comfort, my mother added. I looked at them in disbelief. They were choosing to potentially lose me rather than ask Tyler to take responsibility for himself. So if I move out, Tyler stays in the apartment? Tyler needs stability, my father said. You have options. You make good money. You have Sarah to help you. Tyler doesn't have those advantages. Tyler had remained silent throughout this exchange, letting our parents defend him while he avoided taking any position that might require accountability. I turned to him directly. Tyler, do you think this arrangement is fair to me? He looked uncomfortable. I mean, I appreciate everything you're doing, and I'll pay you back when I can. That's not what I asked. Do you think it's fair that I pay double rent while you contribute nothing? It's just temporary, he said. How temporary? Give me a specific timeline. Again, silence. Tyler couldn't commit to a timeline because he had no intention of changing his situation. Why would he? He had free housing, free food, free entertainment, and no responsibilities. I realized that my parents had already made their decision before this meeting started. They had chosen Tyler's comfort over fairness, and they were willing to sacrifice my well-being to maintain that choice. All right, I said, standing up from the table. I'll start looking for my own apartment. Jesse, don't be hasty, my mother said, but her tone suggested this was exactly the outcome she expected. Actually, I already started looking. I was hoping this conversation would make that unnecessary, but I can see it won't. As I gathered my papers and prepared to leave, my father dropped one more bombshell. You know, we've already had some people ask about renting that apartment. Word gets around when someone's not reliable with their obligations. I stared at him. You've been showing my apartment to other people? We wanted to be prepared in case you decided to walk away from your responsibilities. They had been planning for me to leave while simultaneously pressuring me to stay and support Tyler. They wanted the financial benefits of having me pay double rent, but they were prepared to replace me if I objected to the arrangement. I realized this had never been about helping Tyler. It had been about managing Tyler's problems in a way that required minimal effort and sacrifice from my parents. I was the convenient solution to Tyler's irresponsibility, and if I wasn't willing to play that role, they had backup plans. Walking out of my childhood home that afternoon, I understood that my family dynamics were far more toxic than I had ever acknowledged. My success had made me the designated problem solver for Tyler's failures, and my parents saw this as natural and appropriate, rather than unfair and unsustainable. The really painful part was realizing they had always been prepared to lose me to protect Tyler. They just assumed I would never actually leave because I needed them more than they needed me. They were about to find out how wrong they were. Apartment hunting in our city was usually a competitive process, but I was confident with my income and credit score. What I didn't expect was the number of landlords who seemed hesitant after checking my references. The third landlord who passed on my application was kind enough to explain why. Your current landlord mentioned some concerns about reliability with rent payments. Nothing specific, but enough to make me cautious. My current landlord. My father. I called him immediately. Dad, are you telling people I'm unreliable with rent? I'm telling them the truth, Jesse. You've made it clear that you can't handle your current obligations. My current obligations? You mean the doubled rent you imposed without asking me? I mean your unwillingness to help family when it's needed. I realized my parents were actively sabotaging my ability to move out, while simultaneously pushing me toward that decision. They wanted me to feel trapped in the current arrangement. That weekend, I ran into Mrs. Henderson at the grocery store. She was my parents' neighbor and had known our family for 20 years. She looked genuinely concerned when she saw me. Jesse, honey, I'm so sorry to hear about your family's financial troubles. Financial troubles? Your mother told me about Tyler's situation and how your parents had to borrow against their house to help him out. She said it's been really stressful for everyone. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. They borrowed against their house? Oh dear, I thought you knew. Linda said Tyler had some credit card problems that needed to be handled quickly. Something about legal issues if they didn't pay them off. Mrs. Henderson kept talking, but I had stopped listening. My parents had taken out a loan against their house to pay Tyler's debts. This wasn't just about helping Tyler find stability. This was about preventing financial consequences for decisions Tyler had already made. I drove straight to Tyler's friend Marcus's apartment. Marcus worked construction and was usually honest about things, especially when Tyler wasn't around to manage the conversation. How bad were Tyler's credit card debts? I asked him directly. Marcus looked uncomfortable. Man, I don't know if I should get into Tyler's business. Marcus, I'm paying $1,600 a month in rent to subsidize Tyler's lifestyle. I think I have a right to know what I'm actually paying for. It was bad, Jesse. Like $15,000 bad. And some of those cards had gone to collections. Your parents paid them off about 3 months ago. $15,000. My parents had borrowed against their house to pay off $15,000 in Tyler's credit card debt. That explained why they needed the rental income so desperately and why they were unwilling to negotiate on the arrangement. There's something else, Marcus continued. Tyler's been working at GameStop for about 6 weeks now. Part-time, but still. He just hasn't told your parents because he doesn't want them to know he's been earning money while they're supporting him. I drove back to my apartment in a rage. Tyler had been employed for 6 weeks. He was earning money, collecting unemployment, and living rent-free while our parents struggled with loan payments, and I covered his supposed living expenses. When I got home, Tyler was in the living room playing video games with brand new wireless headphones I hadn't seen before. Nice headphones, I said. Where did you get them? Oh, these? I found a good deal online. How did you pay for them if you don't have money? Tyler's face went red. I had some money saved up. I sat down across from him. Tyler, Marcus told me about your job at GameStop. The color drained from his face. Jesse, I was going to tell everyone soon. I just wanted to make sure it was going to work out first. You've been working there for 6 weeks. How much longer did you need to make sure it was working out? Look, it's only part-time. It's not enough to live on by myself, but it's enough to buy new headphones while I pay your rent. and our parents struggle with loan payments to cover your credit card debts." Tyler set down his controller and looked genuinely panicked. "How do you know about the credit cards?" "I know our parents borrowed $15,000 against their house to bail you out. I know you're collecting unemployment benefits. I know you've been working for 6 weeks, and I know you've been selling my stuff online to fund your entertainment purchases." That last part was a guess, but Tyler's expression confirmed it. "What stuff?" "My vintage guitar picks from the collection I started in high school. My signed baseball from the minor league game Dad took us to. Small things you thought I wouldn't notice right away." Tyler's face crumpled. "Jesse, I'm sorry. I was going to replace everything. I just needed some cash for things, and I knew you had duplicates of some stuff." "Tyler, those weren't duplicates. Those were sentimental items from our childhood, and you sold them to buy video games and headphones." I could see Tyler trying to formulate an explanation that would minimize his responsibility, but I cut him off. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell our parents about your job and your unemployment benefits. You're going to start paying rent based on your actual income, and you're going to stop lying about your situation." Tyler was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked up with an expression I hadn't seen since we were children. "What if I don't?" "What? What if I don't tell them? What are you going to do about it?" I stared at my brother, realizing he was calculating whether he could continue manipulating the situation. "Tyler, this isn't a negotiation. You've been deceiving our parents and financially exploiting me for months. That ends now." "Or what? You'll tell them yourself?" Tyler's voice had turned cold. "Because I'll just say you're lying, because you're angry about the rent. And who do you think they'll believe?" I felt a chill run down my spine. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm just pointing out that if you try to make me look bad, I can make you look worse. I could tell them you've been pressuring me to pay rent I can't afford, or that you've been treating me badly since I moved in. Maybe I could mention some bruises I've been getting from you being rough with me." The implication was clear. Tyler was threatening to claim I had physically assaulted him if I exposed his lies and theft. "Tyler, you're talking about falsely accusing me of assault. I'm talking about protecting myself. You want to destroy my living situation? I can destroy your reputation. And we both know who Mom and Dad will believe." I looked at my brother, really looked at him, and saw a stranger. This wasn't the immature kid I had been trying to help. This was a manipulative adult who was willing to destroy me to protect his comfortable arrangement. I realized that Tyler had never intended to change anything. He had been planning to maintain this lifestyle indefinitely, and he was prepared to use whatever tactics necessary to keep it, including destroying his own brother. I called Sarah that night and told her everything. The credit card debts, the employment Tyler was hiding, the threats about false accusations. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she was quiet for several minutes. "Jesse, you can't stay in this situation. It's not just about money anymore. Tyler is talking about making false accusations against you. That could affect your job, your reputation, everything. I know, but if I leave, he wins. He gets the apartment, and our parents will think I abandoned the family. And if you stay, you lose yourself piece by piece, while enabling someone who's become genuinely dangerous." Sarah was right. I had been thinking about this as a family problem that required a family solution, but Tyler's threat to falsely accuse me of assault had moved this beyond family dynamics into potential legal and professional consequences. "I want to move out this weekend," I said, "before Tyler has a chance to follow through on his threats or come up with new ways to manipulate the situation. I'll help you. Do you want to tell your parents ahead of time?" "No. They've made their position clear. Tyler's comfort is more important to them than fairness or honesty. I'm done trying to convince them otherwise." Friday afternoon, I took a half-day off work and rented a moving truck. Sarah met me at the apartment with boxes and packing supplies. Tyler was at his GameStop job, so we had several hours to pack without confrontation. It was strange how quickly I could pack up 2 years of living in the apartment. My furniture, my clothes, my electronics, my books. Everything that made the place feel like home fit into one truck. Sarah helped me document everything with photos and receipts. "If Tyler or your parents claim you took anything that wasn't yours, you'll have proof." We were loading the last boxes when Tyler's car pulled into the parking lot. He got out wearing his GameStop uniform, which was the first time I had seen tangible evidence of his employment. "What's going on?" he asked, looking at the truck and boxes. "I'm moving out," I said simply. Tyler's face went through several emotions: surprise, panic, and then anger. "You can't just leave without notice. There are procedures for this kind of thing. Actually, I can leave any time I want. I don't have a lease. I was renting month to month from our parents. But what about the apartment? I can't afford it by myself. That's between you and Mom and Dad. I'm sure you'll figure something out." Tyler pulled out his phone. "I'm calling them right now. They need to know what you're doing. Go ahead." I already left them a voicemail explaining that I was moving out today. Tyler called our parents, and I could hear my father's voice through the phone, though I couldn't make out the words. Tyler was explaining that I was actually leaving, that I wasn't bluffing, and that he needed them to come over immediately. 20 minutes later, both my parents arrived. My mother looked upset, and my father looked angry. "Jesse, what do you think you're doing?" my father demanded. "I'm moving my belongings out of the apartment I've been renting from you. You can't take all the furniture. That goes with the apartment." I pulled out the folder Sarah had organized with purchase receipts. Every piece of furniture in this apartment was purchased by me. I have receipts for all of it, dating back 2 years. None of it came with the apartment. My father looked through the receipts, and his expression became more frustrated. "This is ridiculous, Jesse. You're leaving Tyler with an empty apartment. I'm leaving Tyler with an apartment. How he chooses to furnish it is between Tyler and whoever is paying his rent. Tyler can't afford this rent by himself," my mother said. "Then maybe Tyler should have thought about that before threatening to falsely accuse me of assault if I exposed his lies about employment and unemployment benefits." My parents both turned to look at Tyler. "What is she talking about?" my mother asked. Tyler immediately went into damage control mode. "Jesse's been really hostile since I moved in. We had an argument about money, and now he's trying to make me look bad." "Tyler," I said calmly, "tell them about your job at GameStop. Tell them about the unemployment benefits you've been collecting. Tell them about selling my belongings to buy entertainment." "That's not what happened," Tyler said quickly. "Jesse's angry because he doesn't want to help family, so now he's making up stories." I looked at my parents and realized that Tyler was right about one thing. They were going to believe him over me regardless of evidence. Tyler had learned to manipulate their protective instincts, and they were too invested in their version of the story to consider alternatives. "You know what?" I said. "It doesn't matter what you believe. I'm not staying in a situation where I'm being financially exploited and threatened with false accusations." "Jesse, please," my mother said. "We can work this out. We're family. Mom, 3 hours ago, Tyler threatened to claim I physically assaulted him if I told you about his employment. That's not a family problem. That's a serious threat that could affect my job and my future." Sarah stepped forward. I witnessed that conversation. Tyler specifically threatened to claim Jesse had been rough with him and given him bruises if Jesse exposed Tyler's lies about money. My father looked at Tyler. "Is that true?" Tyler's face went red. "I never threatened anyone. I just said that if Jesse kept being aggressive about money, people might get the wrong idea about his attitude." It was a non-denial that confirmed exactly what I had said. Tyler had been threatening false accusations, and he was still doing it in a way that maintained plausible deniability. "I'm done with this conversation," I said. "Tyler, the apartment is yours. Mom and Dad, you can figure out the rent situation with Tyler directly. I'll be staying at Sarah's place until I find my own apartment." "Jesse, you're making a huge mistake," my father said. "Family is supposed to stick together. Family is supposed to be honest with each other and treat each other fairly. This situation has been neither honest nor fair." As Sarah and I drove away with the moving truck, I felt a mixture of relief and sadness. Relief that I was out of a toxic situation, and sadness that my relationship with my family had deteriorated to the point where threats and manipulation had replaced honest communication. But mostly, I felt proud of myself for choosing my own well-being over the dysfunctional expectations that had been placed on me. For the first time in months, I wasn't responsible for managing Tyler's problems or absorbing the consequences of his choices. I was free to build a life based on my own values and decisions, and that felt like the most important thing I had done in years. 3 weeks after moving out, I was settling into a comfortable routine at Sarah's apartment while apartment hunting. My stress levels had dropped significantly. My work productivity had improved, and I was sleeping better than I had in months. Then Tyler called. "Jesse, I really need to talk to you." "What about?" "I'm in trouble with the rent. I can't afford $1,600 a month, even with my GameStop job and unemployment." "Tyler, that's between you and our parents. They own the apartment, but they won't lower the rent. They say they need that amount to cover their loan payments. And since I was supposed to be sharing the space with you, they expected that income level." I had to admire the circular logic. Our parents had borrowed money to pay Tyler's debts, then raised my rent to cover the loan payments, and now they couldn't lower Tyler's rent because they needed the money they had originally expected me to pay. "What do you want me to do about it?" I asked. "Could you help me with part of it? Just until I figure something else out?" "Tyler, I'm not going to help you pay rent after you threatened to falsely accuse me of assault." "Come on, man." I was upset. "I didn't mean any of that stuff. You absolutely meant it. And you were prepared to follow through with it if I hadn't moved out." Tyler was quiet for a moment. "Look, I'm facing eviction here. Mom and Dad are really mad at me about not telling them about my job and the unemployment. They feel like I deceived them." "You did deceive them. You deceived all of us. I know. And I'm sorry. But I'm trying to make it right. I told them everything. And I've been paying what I can. But it's not enough." "How much are you actually earning between GameStop and unemployment?" "About $2,800 a month total." Tyler was earning $2,800 a month and claiming he couldn't afford rent. The math didn't work unless he was spending significant money on other things. "Tyler, $2,800 a month should easily cover $800 in rent plus living expenses. Why can't you afford it?" Another pause. "I have some other expenses." "What other expenses?" "Credit cards. Even though Mom and Dad paid off the big ones, I still have some smaller balances with high minimum payments." Tyler was still spending money he didn't have while claiming poverty. Some patterns never change. "Tyler, I'm not going to enable your financial irresponsibility. Figure out a budget that works with your income, or find a cheaper place to live." I hung up the phone feeling frustrated but also relieved that I wasn't caught up in Tyler's ongoing financial drama. Sarah had been right. Removing myself from the situation had been the only way to avoid being continually manipulated. 2 days later, I got a call from my cousin David, who lived about an hour outside the city. David and I had always gotten along well, but we didn't talk regularly. "Jesse, I heard about what happened with Tyler and your parents. I wanted to check in and see how you're doing." "I'm doing well, actually. It was the right decision to move out." "I'm sure it was. The whole situation sounded pretty unfair from what I heard." We talked for a few minutes about work and life, and then David said something that caught my attention. "You know, I always wondered when your parents were going to tell you about Grandma's will." "What about Grandma's will?" "The apartment building. Didn't you know it was left to you?" I felt like the world had stopped spinning. "What do you mean it was left to me?" "Grandma's will specifically left the apartment building to you. I thought you knew. Your parents have been managing it until you turned 30 or got married, but technically, you're the owner." My grandmother had died 4 years ago, and I had never seen her will. My parents had handled all the estate matters and told me she had left small monetary gifts to the grandchildren, but that most of her assets went to them. "David, are you sure about this?" I was one of the witnesses when she had the will updated. "She said she wanted to make sure you had property security because you were the one grandchild who was building a stable, responsible life." I hung up the phone and sat in silence for 10 minutes. If David was right, my parents had been collecting rent on property that legally belonged to me. For 2 years, they had been taking rental income from an apartment building that I owned. I called Sarah and explained what David had told me. She was quiet for a moment, then said, "Jesse, if this is true, your parents have been committing fraud. I need to see the will." We drove to the county courthouse the next day and requested a copy of my grandmother's will from the probate records. The will was clear and specific. The apartment building was left to me, with the provision that my parents could manage it until I turned 30 or married. I was 28 years old and had been in a serious relationship with Sarah for 8 months. According to the will, I should have had full control of the property 2 years ago when I turned 26. The rental income records showed that my parents had been collecting approximately $4,000 per month from the 4 units in the building. For 2 years, they had received $96,000 in rental income from property that belonged to me. Sarah helped me research tenant rights and property management laws. Jesse, your parents owe you a significant amount of money, and they've been violating their fiduciary duty as property managers, but they used some of that money to pay Tyler's debts. They used your money to pay Tyler's debts without your knowledge or consent. That makes it even worse. I had spent months feeling guilty about not wanting to support Tyler financially. Now, I discovered that I had been supporting him, along with my parents, without even knowing it. They had been using rental income from my property to subsidize Tyler's lifestyle while charging me rent to live in my own building. The betrayal was deeper than I had imagined. This wasn't just about family dynamics or different opinions about responsibility. This was about my parents deliberately deceiving me about property ownership and stealing rental income that legally belonged to me. I realized that my decision to move out hadn't just been about protecting myself from Tyler's manipulation. It had been about escaping a family system built on deception and financial exploitation that went back years. For the first time since this whole situation began, I felt like I had the power to demand real change instead of just protecting myself from further harm. Armed with the legal documentation of my ownership, I consulted with an attorney who specialized in property law and family disputes. Her name was Jennifer Walsh, and she reviewed my situation with the kind of professional detachment that helped me see it clearly. You have grounds for several legal actions, Jennifer told me. Fraudulent property management, theft of rental income, and potentially criminal charges for using your assets to pay debts without authorization. I don't necessarily want to pursue criminal charges against my parents, I said. I want to resolve this fairly, but I also want them to understand the seriousness of what they've done. That's reasonable. We can offer them a choice: voluntary resolution or legal consequences. Jennifer helped me draft a letter explaining my ownership of the property and requesting an immediate family meeting to discuss proper transfer of control and accounting for the misappropriated rental income. I called my parents and asked them to meet me at Jennifer's office the following Saturday. I didn't explain why, just said it was important family business that required professional guidance. My parents arrived looking confused and slightly defensive. My father kept asking why I needed a lawyer for family issues, and my mother seemed worried that I was taking legal action over the rent dispute. "Mom, Dad, I want to show you something," I said, and handed them a copy of Grandma's will. I watched my father's face as he read the property ownership clause. He went pale, then red, then pale again. "Where did you get this?" he asked quietly. "From the county courthouse. It's a matter of public record." My mother took the will from him and read it herself. "Jesse, we were going to tell you about this when you got married or turned 30. Mom, I turned 26 2 years ago. According to this will, you should have transferred control then." Jennifer stepped in with the professional documentation. "According to property records, your parents have collected approximately $96,000 in rental income from property that legally belongs to you, Mr. Peterson. They've also used an unknown amount of that income to pay debts incurred by your brother without your knowledge or consent." The room was quiet, except for the sound of my mother crying softly. "We never meant to hurt you," my father said. "We were trying to help Tyler, and we thought you didn't need the rental income because you have a good job. Dad, you were stealing from me to enable Tyler's irresponsible spending. And when I objected to paying doubled rent, you made me feel guilty for not wanting to help family. We paid Tyler's credit card debts because we were afraid he'd get sued," my mother said. "We were trying to protect him by using money that belonged to me, and then charging me rent to live in my own building." Jennifer opened a folder with financial calculations. "The total amount owed to Mr. Peterson is approximately $87,000, after accounting for reasonable property management expenses and taxes. Your son has several options for how to handle this situation." My father looked at the numbers and sank deeper into his chair. "We don't have $87,000. "I know," I said. "That's why I'm offering you an alternative to legal action." I had spent days working out a plan that would address the financial issues, while giving everyone a chance to rebuild family relationships based on honesty and accountability. Here's what I'm willing to do, I said. First, you immediately transfer full control of the property to me. Second, Tyler pays actual market rent for his apartment based on his current income. Third, we establish a payment plan for you to repay the misappropriated funds over 5 years. Fourth, everyone commits to family therapy to address the communication and boundary issues that created this situation. My parents looked at each other, then at me. What if we can't make the payments? My mother asked. Then I'll work with you on modifications, but the payments have to be consistent and documented. And Tyler has to take full responsibility for his own living expenses going forward. What about Tyler's rent? My father asked. He's already behind on payments. Tyler pays what he can afford based on his actual income, or he finds somewhere cheaper to live. Those are normal, adult choices that he should have been making all along. Jennifer added some legal structure to the agreement, including documentation requirements and consequences for non-compliance, but the basic framework was about restoring honesty and fairness to our family relationships. 2 weeks later, Tyler moved to a smaller, cheaper apartment across town. He was angry about losing the comfortable setup he had enjoyed, but he was also relieved to have clear expectations instead of constantly managing manipulative scenarios. My parents entered family therapy and began making monthly payments toward the debt they owed me. It was awkward at first, but Dr. Martinez, our therapist, helped us identify the patterns of enabling and favoritism that had created the crisis. I moved into one of the other units in my building, a one-bedroom apartment that was perfect for my needs. Living in my own building felt strange but also empowering. I was responsible for tenant relationships and property maintenance, but I was also building equity and generating income from an asset my grandmother had hoped would provide me security. Sarah and I grew closer through the process of establishing healthy boundaries with my family. She had seen me navigate crisis with integrity, and I had seen her provide support without trying to control outcomes. 6 months later, I proposed to her in the same park where my grandmother used to take me to feed ducks when I was a child. Tyler eventually found full-time work at an electronics repair shop and began building genuine independence. He apologized to me about the threats and manipulation, and while our relationship was different than it had been, it was based on honesty for the first time in years. My parents' marriage grew stronger as they learned to address problems directly instead of managing them through their children. They discovered that they had been enabling Tyler because they were afraid of his anger and disappointment, not because they truly believed they were helping him. The biggest lesson I learned was that loving someone doesn't mean protecting them from the consequences of their choices. Real love requires boundaries, and sometimes the greatest gift you can give family is the chance to stand on their own feet. I also learned that protecting yourself isn't selfish when you're being manipulated or exploited. Setting boundaries and demanding honesty isn't cruel, even when it makes other people uncomfortable. Sometimes the most caring thing you can do is refuse to participate in patterns that harm everyone involved. My grandmother's gift of property had been intended to provide security, but the real gift was learning that I deserved to be treated with respect and fairness by the people I loved. That lesson was worth more than any amount of money. Standing in my own apartment, in my own building, with a healthy relationship and honest family connections, I understood that sometimes walking away from what's familiar is the only way to create something better. The courage to leave a bad situation had given everyone the opportunity to choose something healthier, and that's a choice I'll never regret making. Now I want to ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where family members expected you to sacrifice your well-being for someone else's comfort? How did you handle the pressure to enable someone else's irresponsible behavior? Share your thoughts in the comments below, because I think we've all faced moments where we had to choose between keeping peace and protecting ourselves. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button, subscribe for more real-life stories about navigating difficult family situations, and share this with someone who might need to hear that setting boundaries isn't selfish. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it helps you find the courage to stand up for yourself when it matters most.